All right, many on the left still clinging to the Trump collusion narrative, despite the lack of evidence so far from the Mueller report.
And the media may be to blame, as some headlines this week pushed a continuation of the story.
The New York Times headline read, "Some of Mueller's team say report was more damaging than Barr revealed." Another headline says, quote, "Limited information frustrated some on the Mueller's team."
Here to weigh in is James Freeman, assistant editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page and a Fox News contributor. Welcome, James.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So what do you make of the media's role at this stage of the game?
Disappointing and kind of surprising. I mean, I think we've all had an experience when you have a source that doesn't give you the straight story. It generally makes you angry. I mean, if there's a good faith effort, maybe you forgive them. But this basically 2 years of building up this story, and we get to the end and there's no collusion, and you would think there would be some maybe introspection on the part of the press, humility, trying to make it right, and they're kind of clinging to the narrative.
Just quickly, do you anticipate any change? Say the full report comes out, verifies what Barr has said. Is this just going to continue, this behavior?
Well, I think certainly people who want to cling to the belief in collusion, or they like that message politically, will look for items in the report that they can quote. But I think the statement from Barr was very direct. No, and it was quoting Mueller. Not just no collusion, no coordination between the Trump campaign, Team Trump, and the Russians. I don't know how it can be any more straightforward.
They're starting to impugn the motive. You talk about good faith. They're impugning the motives of the AG. This is Representative Hank Johnson, Democrat from Georgia. He said AG Barr may have obstructed justice. If it turns out that he has obstructed justice by how he handled the Mueller report, that will be a deep stain on his legacy. So they're going after Barr and the way he characterized the report.
Yeah, that's not obstruction. This is absurd. The obstruction is destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses. The fact that Barr does not agree with them that there is obstruction or collusion is not obstruction. He is our duly appointed and Senate-confirmed Attorney General. The Justice Department makes charging decisions. We have a constitutional system where the president runs our justice system. He is the executive branch, I should say, the Justice Department. I think people like to pretend that it's independent, or maybe they just want certain results. But this claim of obstruction on the part of Barr is just absurd.
Wouldn't it have been odd for Barr to mischaracterize the report, knowing full well that more details are going to come out? And then, I mean, that would ruin his entire legacy, his entire credibility. Doesn't that seem like an odd move for him?
Well, it's not just extremely hard to believe on its own merits, but the idea that he would mislead or lie about what was in the report and nobody involved would say anything.
Right.
Wouldn't Mueller, for example, want to say something now if
is he not
words were
talking to the
mischaracterized?
Mueller team as it pertains to redactions? I mean, we know they're working hand in hand to make sure that whatever isn't released is done so for the right reasons.
And people should know, and they probably do, that some of this material, grand jury testimony, it's illegal to disclose it. There are various reasons. Of course, there are issues of intelligence, sources, and methods. There can be lots of reasons why the full report should not be out there. You don't want to put out allegations that are not leading to some kind of charge. The Justice Department isn't sort of in the business of randomly smearing people that it's not charging. And so there are lots of good reasons, and that's why the law does not require the full set of allegations to come out. What it requires is the report that Barr has made.
If only it was about the law, James.
Well, there you go.
Thanks so much.
James Freeman, thanks a lot.
Joining me right now, Congress of Racial Equality leader Niger Innis and former White House advisor under President Clinton, Doug Schoen. Good to see you both. Doug, goodness, I mean, they just won't stop. And I find it historically just so wrong and culturally insulting, frankly, to anyone who lost a family member during those horrific World War II years, whether it was in a Nazi Germany concentration camp or whether it was a family member who fought to free Germany. I mean, you got these guys out there, these young guys trying to say that the administration is the equivalent of the Third Reich? Come on.
Well, I guess I come at it a slightly different way, but reach the same conclusion, Trish. I am proud that our embassy is now, because of President Trump, in Jerusalem. I'm proud that this week he recognized the sovereignty of the state of Israel over the Golan Heights. To compare a president who has a 95% approval rating in Israel to someone who has anything to do with Nazi Germany is, to me, ridiculous. And on immigration, call Jay Johnson, Obama's Secretary for Homeland Security, who said we have a crisis at the border, acknowledging what the president said. What we need is immigration reform, not crazy, absurd rhetoric.
Yeah, you know, as I started off the show, what I was saying was they're not, you can have immigration reform and you can have border security. I mean, actually, you should have both. They go hand in hand. And there are Democrats right now, Niger, that are saying, oh, no, if you want border security, then somehow you're racist against Hispanics that would want to come here. No. You can have strong borders while simultaneously inviting people to come here and participate in our great country, in our great economy. But, you know, make it easier for people to do it the right way.
Some of the folks that want legal immigration, want border security more than any other, are Hispanic Americans. There are polls that are showing that Trump's popularity with the Hispanic community is going to go through the roof if he's successful at implementing his immigration policy. Look, the Democratic Party, I can't wait for 2020 because I've got my popcorn out, because watching the Democratic follies, also known as the presidential campaign, is going to be hysterical. The Democratic Party of Bill Clinton circa 1992, of JFK, of RFK, of even Jimmy Carter in 1976, of Doug Schoen in the old days when he was a mainstream Democrat. That Democrat Party is long gone. It is buried. It has been replaced by a group of angry, hateful folk who are going to be competing to see who's most crazy.
Well, look, Doug, you predicted this in your book where you looked at Venezuela and the threat of socialism, and you've predicted that, you know, socialism, if we go down that path, it's very hard to recover from that. And that's exactly the path the Democratic Party is going down.
I did say it, and I appreciate your acknowledging that, Trish. Thank you. But I never thought that we would have the Maduro-Chavez wing of the Democratic Party. Basically, Democrats who embrace Cuban-style or Venezuelan-style socialism. It's absurd, demeaning, and ridiculous to the values that made our country what it is today.
And speaking of anti-Semitism, you know, this is the same Democrat Party. They've got the nerve to be hypocrites. This is the same Democratic Party that could not condemn Oman for the anti-Semitic statements that she's made. There are large segments of the Democrat far left-wing constituency that Doug made reference to, the Maduro-Chavez wing of the party, that are virulently anti-Semitic, that do not believe that Israel should exist as a Jewish state, that would want to wipe it off the map. That is a part of the Democratic Party today.
Well, I mean, that's tragic, right? Because, as you said, this is not the party. You know, and by the way, that's not the party that can win. I mean, they're out there trying to destroy Joe Biden, Doug, who, you know, had Joe Biden actually run, I say he would have given Donald Trump a run for his money in 2016. They just made the mistake of, you know, putting forward Hillary Clinton. I know you like her and everything because you're close to Bill, but let's face it, she's no Bill.
Well, she's no Bill. I didn't support her, though I have worked for her. And I would say Joe Biden's now well ahead in the polls. Why does the left wing do exactly what Niger says they're trying to do, which is to drag him down and drag down anyone who's in the middle and is a moderate, rational person? And to me, the left is intolerant, they're hostile, and they really are more about their own ideological purity than winning an election and offering an alternative set of positive policies to those of the president.
What a shame. Niger and Doug.
It is a shame.
Good to see you guys. Thank you so much.
Now, also remember, as Democrats fuel even more baseless tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, this time a cover-up by the Attorney General Barr, look at this law. It's the obstruction law, 18 U.S.C. 1505. Look at the language. It requires intent. Any obstruction case hinges on whether someone was corruptly trying to influence the investigation. I think that's like if you have subpoenaed emails, the intent to delete them, clean out your hard drive with bleach pit, bust up your devices with hammers, and take out SIM cards. That might show intent. Joining us now to explain all this is the attorney for the president, former mayor, New York City, Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, a 9-month FBI, they concluded, no there. We had the House Intel Committee, no collusion. Bipartisan Senate Committee, no collusion. Attorney General Barr quoted Robert Mueller, no collusion. Now they've moved on to this. Let's talk about the law that I just mentioned.
Well, it's absolutely disgraceful, Sean. I mean, the reality is that to obstruct justice, you have to threaten, you have to impede, you have to get in the way of somebody. Let's go back to the one that Weinstein and all of his angry Democrats used to push, which is when the president allegedly said, the president said this conversation never took place. He said to Flynn, you know, I hope you can see fit to drop this or not pursue this. First of all, you don't have obstruction by hope. You have obstruction by coercion, threat, I'll break your legs, I'll take your food away, or I'll kidnap your children. I prosecuted a lot of obstruction cases. Nobody ever started an obstruction sentence with I hope. And nobody ever did obstruction by putting out a legal memo for the whole world to see. And we're going to find out in a week or two how accurate Bill Barr's summary was. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be 100% accurate. Bill Barr is a great lawyer, and he is an extraordinarily honorable man. I can't say that for the congressmen who are making all these wild, crazy, insane threats. Their claim of obstruction against the Attorney General of the United States is no better than the 2-year claim of obstruction by the angry Democrats that tried to claim the president was obstructing. The president didn't obstruct anything. And the best evidence of that is they completed their darn investigation. How the heck did it get obstructed? Nothing was obstructed.
And by the way, it was very clear in the Attorney General's letter that both he and Rod Rosenstein, who appointed the special counsel, decided very quickly, without any consideration of the Justice Department rule about whether or not you can indict a sitting president, but more importantly, it was being discussed the whole time, and there's also, beyond intent, there's no crime. So the president saying, I hope Flynn doesn't go to jail after serving his country, or firing Comey, which he had a right to do, or saying it's a witch hunt is not, nobody was obstructed.
This would be the obstruction case to end all obstruction cases. In other words, somebody obstructed to obstruct an investigation of a non-crime that he didn't commit, that he was innocent of, and then it turned out he didn't obstruct. That they interviewed 500 witnesses, got 1.4 million documents, got every wish fulfilled, and engaged in some practices that are truly horrendous, like raids in the middle of the night, bringing CNN in to photograph raiding Stone's house, for example. Leaking now. I mean, everybody misses the real point here. The real wrongdoing are the prosecutors who just leaked. I thought Mueller didn't leak. Ha!
Yeah,
you believe that one, and I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge.
Let me change topics for a second. In a few days, there's an election in Israel. Both of us have been friends with Prime Minister Netanyahu for a long time. You now have this crazy opponent, Benny Gantz is his name, who actually is pushing, he's saying to the people of Israel, oh, Putin is trying to help Bibi, Trump is trying to help Bibi, and without any evidence whatsoever. And I'm thinking, if there's one guy that has had moral clarity and been a Churchillian figure, understanding the moral imperatives of our time, it's Prime Minister Netanyahu on Golan, on Jerusalem, etc.
Well, maybe there's a consistency here. What the president did was to help Israel, twice, with the embassy and then with Golan and many other things. The president had to reverse the betrayal of Israel by Obama. And so, I mean, the president has been a great president for Israel. But then also he comes after Obama, who was the worst president for Israel.
It's the best relationship we've ever had.
It just so happens that in helping Israel, he helps the prime minister. But what is he supposed to do, not help Israel?
This has been the best relationship between Jerusalem, now be in the recognized capital, Golan Heights, for protection. I hope the people of Israel understand this is the best it's ever been.
They've also developed a real good alliance with the Arab countries around them, so that they pose now a real substantial defense to Iran.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to see you.